You have hunted me. This is good. Let's see if you have the strength to finish what you started. Here it comes!
Let me help you!
What's up, you guys? What an exciting day. So as you guys know, I was so lucky to be able to play Spider-Man 2 early. Thanks so much to PlayStation and Insomniac Games. The event was just an amazing experience. I loved every single minute of it. But right now, let's dive into the game and let's start with what we know. Starting with enemies, we know we'll have appearances from Kraven, Venom, Lizard, Wraith, Mr. Negative, Shocker, Taskmaster, Tombstone, and more. We also know that Venom is not Eddie Brock, and we can also expect that there are some more surprises in store for us. What else do we know? We know that there are over 65 suits, and because you can customize, there are over 200 combinations. Especially cool are the suits that come with the deluxe version of the game. We got the apocalyptic suit featuring a kind of low-tech 80s punk vibe, the stone monkey suit inspired by Chinese legends, the tactical suit, which is a clean-looking suit with a more futuristic and lighter design, the Orantia suit that incorporates some cool designs including antennas fused into the mask, the 25th century suit that has an ultra-modern design and gives slight Ant-Man vibes, the encoded suit that incorporates some cool abstract Spidey lettering, the biomechanical suit that merges more muscular, organic elements with mechanical suit, the Red Spectre suit that has a stylish take on a Miles Morales suit, the Tokusatsu suit inspired by, well, Takusatsu, and the Agimat suit inspired by the indigenous tribes of my home country, the Philippines. I'm also happy to report that it looks like we'll have Bully Maguire and his suit from the movie, as well as two of my favorites, as you can see here. Bonus points for you if you recognize these suits. We also know that the map is going to be roughly twice as large, and it will have Queens and Brooklyn with specialized content in certain neighborhoods that will be specific to Miles or Peter, and I just love how the specific locales will add additional layers to the storylines. Also, could we have Mysterio-specific missions? It really looks like it, as you can see the symbols in the open world as well as the mission icons on the map. Super Slingshots and Webwings are new, and I have to say I love the feel of the Webwings as it adds another dimension to the traversal system between your swings, and there's a certain new satisfaction pushing triangle between your X and R2 trigger pushes. Not only that, but the Webwings don't feel cheap, as in they put in just enough instability to the controls where it really gives the feeling of flying in a wingsuit, as opposed to being able to defy gravity and fly around like, say, Superman. While on the subject of traversal, I also have to add in that there's also a bunch of new cool animations to swinging to both Miles and Peter. Now, we don't have footage of some of the cooler ones, but I promise you, you're in for a nice surprise. I also love the feel of the parry system. The default window felt really nice and intuitive, and I love the feeling of being rewarded with additional follow-up damage when you time the parries right. Being a lover of the old school God of War games, I love hitting that L1 button and timing a perfect parry. We also know that the story takes place about 9 months after the event of Miles Morales as Kraven the Hunter arrives in the city. But the thing I love most about the story is that it's darker, it's more gritty, and we've heard Bryan Intihar, the senior creative director at Insomniac Games, mention before the elements of addiction, power, and their impacts to relationships of loved ones, as well as yourself. I really do think that the possibilities are endless as it relates to the narrative and storytelling in Spider-Man 2. And I truly believe that if the story can pan out as good as I think it can, it has the potential of propelling Spider-Man 2 as being one of the best superhero games to date. Speaking of Bryan and great stories, let's chat with Bryan a little bit and let him take us back in time to when Insomniac Games and the Spider-Man IP first became a thing. So let's go back to the very beginning with Spider-Man. It's such a difficult task to be able to take on such a beloved IP and, to be able to satisfy the very passionate fan base.
It's a great word to use, passionate.
Very passionate fan base and critics alike. So can you please take us back, like way back? What were you doing when you first even heard about it?
So we were actually we were just about to wrap up another game, and we heard about Sony had approached us about would we be interested in working on a Marvel game. And I remember walking into Ted's office, Ted Price, the president and CEO, and I said, I would pretty much do anything, absolutely anything, to work on a Marvel game. And I said, I think we could do a really great job. I remember at one point saying, like, I give up like my left arm to do it. Now, coincidentally, many years later, my arm was scanned for Spider-Man 1. So I actually did give up a little bit of my arm to do it. But yeah, I just felt like, you know, I was just such a big Marvel fan growing up. I feel like we had so many Marvel fans at the studio, and I felt like we could just take the stuff that we're really good at and bring it to a Marvel property. And then obviously when the idea of Spider-Man came up, I just felt like he was such a natural fit. And 9 years later, now we're working on Spider-Man 2. So it was just kind of a, you know, a word I use a lot is it's surreal. It's been a surreal experience since those days, and it's just been, you know, I have one of the best jobs in the world. I really do. It's not overstating. It's true. Like, I have an amazing job, and I work with an amazing team to execute these kind of games.
And lucky for me, I got to play hands-on with their amazing team created. Okay, so there were two things that stuck out to me at first. The first thing was the sound design, and this is surprising because I'm not usually a sound person. The first things that I usually notice are things like lighting and graphics and textures, but for Spider-Man 2, the soundtrack, the placements of sound in the 3D space, the crunchiness of the hits, they were so freaking good that they really stood out to me, and it was the first thing my brain registered. This was in both the cutscenes and gameplay as well. Another thing I noticed is the draw distance in this game is improved, so things in the distance are loaded in much quicker and you can see much further. Now, the second thing that stuck out to me was just the level of speed and fluidity of the game. Swinging on the web is so much faster, and then of course the fluidity and seamless transitions. Now, I know that PlayStation Studios are pretty known for their transitions, but Spider-Man 2 just brings it to another level. So the game I've been playing a lot of lately is Starfield. Now, I don't mean to knock Starfield. I need to say I love Starfield. It's a great game. But coming from playing Starfield and the loading screens and those types of transitions and then going to Spider-Man 2, it's just crazy. For example, there's that one scene in Spider-Man 2, you're fighting the lizard, you're underground in that part of the phase, and then there's just the seamless transition to another phase in a completely different environment or world, and you don't even realize it. It just boggles my mind how cool or challenging it might be to be able to have an environment so huge load in like that so seamlessly. And this theme of seamless gameplay, it's basically everywhere, from the transition to the map to every cutscene. It's really some cool stuff here that makes it easy to stay immersed. So you guys, you never had any doubt or nervous, because you said yourself, you're a Marvel fan, right?
I think the thing is, when you realize you're going to work on something so beloved and popular and passionate fans, you continually worry, is it going to live up to expectations? Is the story going to be as good as they expect? Is the gameplay going to, are you going to deliver on swinging through a city or combat or this Peter story, or if you're going to bring in Miles, all those kind of those risks, we brought Miles in the same universe. That was something unexpected. Peter working for Otto in the first game, it was all like, we tried to find like, how do we respect the DNA of the franchise, but how do we mix things up and mix up in a way that people like, not list like. So I probably worry enough for everybody. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not so good. But yeah, I think there's always that nervous excitement that, we're doing something that I hope people really like, but you're always going, I just hope they like it. I just hope they like it.
The jitters.
There's a lot of jitters.
Miles' set of moves was super fun. So in Spider-Man 2, you use the L1 button in combination with the X, square, circle, triangle to use your special moves, and they fill up over time. So of course Peter has his set of moves, and here you can see Miles has lightning-based special attack like his Thunderburst and Chain Lightning, and it's really cool to make combos out of those attacks. How crucial was the success of the first game to Sony agreeing to acquire Insomniac?
You know, I don't know if that was tied at all. Like, I just know that, you know, when I was told that we were, you know, it was many months later, I was told that we were going to join PlayStation. I was extremely excited. Like, I just thought it was, I mean, we had been working with Sony for so long. We know our producers have been our producers for so many years and so many titles. It just felt great. I mean, I just, you know, my reaction was, this is incredible, because they've just been such a great supporter of our studio. And I think what, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, our team and, you know, working with Marvel, which has been so great. I'd like to remind people, like, the support we get from Sony and our producers and everybody across the board, whether it's PR and marketing, it's always about what's best for the game, what's going to make the best game. And I think, you know, it might sound like I'm giving advertisement for not, but the truth is, like, it makes you want to make the game better, because when you have that kind of support, it's just, it's incredible.
Going back with the support at PlayStation, so can you expound on what kind of relationship PlayStation has with Insomniac? Like, how does PlayStation deal with these?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, like, if you look at the business side, like, yeah, there's Sony HQ and our producers and something, but, like, truthfully, we're all kind of one team. Like, I think of our producers, Mark Cerny, Grady Hunt, Ara, Joe, even Connie Booth, like, they're just an extension of the team. And, like, these are people who've made amazing games for multiple years across multiple studios. They are such a great resource for feedback and support and reassurance. And, hey, we're having a question about this. What do you think? So to me, you know, in many ways, they have made me and many of people at Insomniac better game developers for all that feedback. So it's not really seen as like, oh, it's us and them. It's really just about one group, you know. And I would bring, even, you know, with obviously working on Spider-Man, Marvel's just another element of that, you know, that support that we get. And it's, you know, when we get all that, now obviously part of my job is to take all that feedback and figure out how we act on it. But, you know, I would say that's, if you became a Spider-Man fan because of that, because of Spider-Man 1, a lot of part of that is because of the support we get from those two groups.
Regret ever coming here.
Peter has his own special attacks utilizing the Symbiotic. And I especially love the new Symbiotic Surge mode, which is essentially almost a rage mode that you can utilize when the meter is full.
Are you hearing this, Harry?
When you're in the Symbiotic Surge mode, the sense of power and damage is just super satisfying, and I just can't help but smile when I activate it with R3 and L3.
Harry, this place is coming down. We need to leave. No, hold.
You guys are like one big unit.
Yeah,
you guys,
yes.
So if you guys are family, you technically have brothers, like in the form of Santa Monica Studios, Guerrilla, Naughty Dog. So do you ever go like, hey, Corey, like, I have this scene. What do you think about this?
Well, a lot of the times I sit there and I go, oh my God, their games are so good. We have to compete. You know, I definitely think that, you know, we talk, you know, like, for example, Eric Williams, the creative director on God of War Ragnarok, good friend of mine and great guy and super smart. And, you know, when we were launching, we launched obviously God of War and Spider-Man launched in the same year. So I was talking to Corey, what was going through. And I think, you know, it's always there if we want it. We're all really busy, so that complicates things. We're all working on projects, but I think it's again, it's that support. Like, if you need it, like, we'll get it. I think it's not something that happens every day. But I think at the end of the day is we all want to make great games and that meet that standard that all PlayStation Studios has done for so many years.
Yes.
So, you know, in many ways, I'm very envious and proud to be part of that group. You know, it's just so, you know, when you play a PlayStation Studios game, there's certain expectations, right?
Yes.
The quality, and I think we just hope to, every game we release, we're hitting that quality bar and hopefully raising it, and, you know, constantly being part of that esteemed group.
In any of the Spider-Man games, did any of your sister and brother companies, did they give you guys any input on a specific mechanic that you guys can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, like, for example, like our writers are really good friends with the writers on God of War, so we're kind of always talking, about certain things, and not to go into too much detail, but yeah, I mean, if you played God of War, those are really good stories, and they're really good writers, and having them, look at things. So, for myself, I know our writers have been in touch with them. I'm not sure how much we've gone back and forth on their stuff, but I see if any time we can get feedback, whether it's from, when new Insomniacs come to the studio, or we do a lot of testing with friends and family, or even getting some fresh perspective from UX. We're always looking to get feedback on the game to make it better wherever it comes from.
How can I get on the list of the friends and family? I'm kidding, but no, that's so fun because I also just want to talk about, we mentioned God of War, that I'm also a huge fan of that.
I'm a huge fan of that.
And I discovered God of War with God of War 2018. And I ended up...
That's a good game to discover.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's nice to see that all of you guys support each other, help one another.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you'll see it like when a new game launches, we all come out and support each other, because we also know how hard these games are to make.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. It takes a lot of hardworking people. A lot of people work really, really hard on these things. So, just getting a game out is an accomplishment in itself. And then when you release games like The Last of Us, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, it's pretty Horizon. Like, I could go down the line, Astrobot. There's just so many. It's incredible to be, to see it come out and you want to support them.
Yes, I agree. I agree the hard work that comes into it. Also new for Spider-Man 2 is improved mechanics and use of the DualSense triggers in certain scenarios. Like, you can see here how you need to adjust and give just the right amount of pressure to each trigger. You'll also notice how tight and fluid the camera angle and controls are. And it really gives you that sense of being in tight spaces where you really need to be delicate and use the controls in a really immersive way. Reviews and scores, can really impact the success of a game, especially nowadays in the age of social media. So I want to ask you personally, how do you view them? Like, do they affect you at all? Or what is your entire stand when it comes to reviews?
Obviously, we want the game to be received well.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I think, something I talk a lot about myself, you definitely can get, into that mode of looking at the reviews. I think what I always tell myself at the end of the day is, can I look at myself in the mirror and say we did everything we possibly could to make that game great? And that's the one thing I can't control.
Yeah.
We do everything we possibly could to make that game great. And if I can say that at the end of the day, that might sound a little cliche, but I feel like that's the thing I can control, is that did we do everything we possibly could to make the game great? And if that is, then whatever score it gets, it gets. Obviously, do I want it to be highly scored? Of course.
Yeah.
I would, of course. But at the end of the day, it's about, can we feel good about? I can look at myself and say, hey, you know what? We put something out really great. I'm really proud of it, no matter what the score gets.
Of course, because it's like your baby. You want it to be well loved. You want it to be well received. So of course you're gonna want people to like it.
Like we're in school, you want to get an A on the test, right?
Exactly.
Of course, but everything. It's also about the effort you put in, and did you know? Hey, I feel like we did the right thing. We made the right decisions, and it's subjective. People have their opinions, and I respect that. As someone who used to be a journalist way back in the day, I understand it's an opinion, and I have to respect that.
Yeah, and it's giving yourself the grace, which I really appreciate that, and I'm sure other creators will appreciate you hearing. It's giving yourself grace and knowing that you did everything that you can. Can I just say, I really love the lizard boss fight. There's no other way to describe these boss fights other than to say these are boss fights for gamers that love the game. The way you have to use the environments, navigate the puzzles of the boss fight, and the intuitive way you have to implement the complete suite of controls given to you, parrying, dodging, gadgets, special moves. You really do have to utilize everything they've given you in an intelligent way. And on top of that, you add the sound, the seamless transitions. I could not stop smiling during this whole fight. And the great thing, if the lizard fight is this good, how amazing will the final boss fight be? Who knows?
You can still be with them.
who's the person that you'd really trust their opinion on when it comes to your work, and why? Like, who's that person you would go to for validation of your work?
That's a great question. I think it really starts with our team. I think I don't think it's like one person is going to be like the voice. I think, the game is made by a lot of really talented people across many different disciplines. It's not just the game I'm directing. It's made by many animators, designers, audio engineers, programmers, riggers, writers. And at the end of the day, it's about starting with that. Like, if we're excited about what we're making and we're happy with it and we're honest with ourselves with what we're making, I think that's end of the day, that's where obviously we put the game in players' hands, while during development to get feedback. But, it starts with like, what do we think?
Yeah.
And I lean on a lot of people, whether it's Jacinda, our senior art director, Ryan Smith, our senior game director, Bobby, our animation director, Mike Fitzgerald, our engine director, Doug, our gameplay programmer, Josue, our design director, John, our lead, our native director, Ben and Lauren, our writers, and many more names I could mention today. Most of the time, we're tough on ourselves too. We're asking ourselves like, hey, do we like it because we like it, or we like it because it should? And I think if we start there, everything else kind of takes care of itself.
Okay, so I'm going to go off script here a little bit because since you mentioned that you value your team, how do you guys settle creative differences? And like, what gets decided for that? And has there ever been an instance where you guys went with one way and you found out it didn't work, so you guys had to backtrack?
Yeah. Well, we talked about family, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what do families sometimes do? They sometimes debate. They sometimes have disagreements. Mm-hmm. But I think when we do that, we're also trying to be really respectful of each other's opinion.
Of course.
And sometimes, so I would say most of the time, the direction we go kind of becomes pretty obvious. Like as we talk about it, there are times where in my position, I will have to make a decision and say, hey, we're heading this direction. Sometimes not everybody's happy.
Yes.
But that's okay. And then sometimes, we also have to admit, hey, we make a decision, we go down a direction, and it's not the right one. And we have to be, transparent about, hey, we made the wrong decision. And sometimes someone will say like, but I said, and that happens. Like, it's part of a creative endeavor. You're going to make decisions. Sometimes they're going to be right. Sometimes they're going to be wrong. You hope when the wrong ones, you have enough time to correct it. In video games, it takes iteration is real, and it takes a lot of time, and sometimes you have to make a decision at that moment. So hopefully you can make it with enough time to change, but it's healthy debate, and we try to be really respectful of each other. And
yes.
As being a creative director, for 9 years, part of my evolution as a creative director is to learn to trust and to trust the experts of being really good. Like, for example, I'm not going to tell Bobby, the cinematics director, challenge him on his cameras. I trust Bobby, the expert, someone who has won awards with his team about making great game, or a writer is making decisions. Like, I'll have an opinion, but I also have to learn to trust them at the same time. And I think what I've learned is the more you trust people, the more they take what you want to do and they make it even better. Yes. And I think that's something I learned in my evolution as becoming a creative director.
Yes, and I totally empathize with you on that one, because even though, of course, there is a technical aspect when it comes to video games and, the things which are what's right or wrong, there's still the things that are ambiguous. Like, you wouldn't know what direction you want to go because there's like different directions. It's kind of like art, like how people can perceive art, and like beauty is subjective to the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah, and sometimes we'll put out a demo or a trailer, a gameplay reveal, and you think someone's going to comment on all this stuff.
Yes.
And then
they notice something else.
Completely something different. And I think that's like you said, it's subjective. It's some people do different things. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about respecting your team, trusting your team, and being open to an idea, suggestion. Sometimes you can, I think early on, it being a creative director, you want to instill confidence in the team that, hey, I'm the person that can help lead this project, establish the vision. But I think what you do is you have that, you help establish a vision, but also be open to something new, something to a different perspective. And I think the more you do that in the relative time that you have to make the game, I think it leads to a better game. I think Spider-Man 1 wouldn't have been as great if it weren't for people speaking up and going, I think we should try this.
Definitely.
Same thing with Miles, same thing with Ratchet, and now same thing with Spider-Man 2.
Also, in Spider-Man 2, we have the return of photo mode and the Spider-Man app that clues you in on neighborhood-specific missions that you can sort of choose like a buffet. There's also the return of the remote Spidey bot, which is always fun to use.
Who's that? Yo, Doug, that better be you.
And of course, gadgets, which I should mention, playing Spider-Man 2, I did not miss the gadget wheel at all, and I found the R1 button and the combination with the other buttons felt really nice. Were there things in Spider-Man 1 which you guys wish could have done, but there were just certain limitations that was imposed on your team, either like a deadline or maybe the technology hasn't caught up? So what were the things that you guys wanted to add in Spider-Man 1 that you guys were able to add in Spider-Man 2 already?
I think it was less about the technology. It was more about, for us in many ways, Spider-Man 1 was like a new IP, right? We never had made a Spider-Man game before. So there's source material and we're referencing it and we're influenced by it, but in many ways we're building Spider-Man from scratch. We're building his moveset from scratch. We're building enemies from scratch. We're building a combat system, traversal system, a city, a traffic system, pedestrians. That's all brand new. So it was about just getting all that stuff up and running. And then what we did with Miles and Spider-Man 2 is to take those elements and expand them, make them bigger. For example, obviously with moving from PlayStation over to PlayStation 5, we can now, on Spider-Man 2, we can swing a lot faster.
Yeah.
Our set pieces can be more dynamic and go from, starting out, like when you're fighting the lizard, up, below ground and seamlessly go, back out into the city. Now, we had ability to do that before, but now because of the PlayStation 5, we can do that better. I also think is like, just having more experience with like, what makes a great Spider-Man mission? What makes great Spider-Man mechanics? It allows us, like, I can tell you, like, of course we thought about the Webwings for the first game. Like,
Yeah.
Of course we did.
Yeah.
But we're like, we got to nail swinging, because swinging's got to, like, that's the core of Spider-Man fantasy.
Yeah.
How do we deliver on that? So, kind of said, okay, let's put Webwings aside. But when Spider-Man 2 comes around, that's one of the first things we're going to get in there, right? So I think it was less about what we couldn't do, it was about, hey, we got one shot to get this right.
Yeah.
And let's nail it. And then if it's successful, which hopefully, and it ended up being successful, we can build upon it. And then not only build upon the stuff that people liked, but find out areas where we thought we had opportunities to even get better. Our bosses, our open world, the sense of exploration, discovery, and push those elements.
I got goosebumps with you explaining that, because it's like you could make a Hollywood movie out of all the pressures and stressors that you guys experience.
I think with any creative medium, there's kind of challenges, right? You have those ups and downs. Whether development, some parts are really, games are really, whether it's a movie, a TV show, your show. I mean, anything. It's hard. It's hard work. It takes iteration. It takes being honest with your work and challenging yourself. And I think that we can do that every single day. Like, as we're trying to finish the game, we're challenging, okay, what is this worth doing? Should we make this change? Is it worth it? And we're gonna do that all the way till they say, all right, Brian, we're done. Yeah.
All right. So I love how you mentioned, just one more?
We're at time.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That was I miss so much. All right. I guess I'm just gonna ask you, what are you most proud about Spider-Man 2?
I think I'm most proud that the kid who grew up wearing 8 Underoos t-shirts at once, and his mom, because he told his mom he didn't know what superhero he wanted to be that day, would be proud of the game we made.
We're gonna heal the world.
If you need me, I'm just a call away. Lee, you don't know what you took from me.
All Miles talks about is how to be a better Spider-Man. How to help you.
What the hell's going on with Pete?
He's not himself. Go help him.
This was our dream.
I'm not going to lose him.
We're going to heal the world.